So since there are new people here, why don't we go around and do introductions. So I'll start. I'm George Williams. I'm the Next Search Catalog Coordinator at Northeast Kansas Library System. I'm also the president of koha-US, and up in my left-hand corner here, I see Lizette. So
I'm Lizette Shear. I'm the System Administrative Specialist at Latah County Library District in North Idaho, which is also part of the ValNet Consortium, and I'm the Vice President of koha-US.
and over here, I see Fred next to me.
Fred King, medical librarian at Washington Hospital Center, Washington, D.C., and unsupported member at large.
Next over, I see Jason.
I'm Jason Robb. I'm the Seek and Find Coordinator here at the Southeast Kansas Library System, and I am the Secretary for koha-US.
Down here, I've got Megan.
I am Megan Favre. I'm a library technician at the McKinney Public Library here in Texas, and I'm a member at large supported.
And then next we have Christopher Platt, who I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have my video on. I'm just listening in from Mono County Library System in California to learn more about Koha.
Okay, nice to have you. Todd, you're up next.
I'm Todd Gartley. I'm a support lead at Bywater Solutions, and I work with the fundraising committee.
And next to Todd, I see Mark Noble.
Hi, I'm Mark Noble. I own Turning Leaf Technologies. I do a discovery product similar to like BiblioCommons or Pica for people that are familiar. I'm not a member. I hope it's okay to lurk here.
Absolutely.
Great.
Next over here, I see Robin Findison. I hope I'm saying that right. And I don't hear anything from Robin. And, okay. Well, let's move on. Next to Robin, I see Valerie from Leavenworth.
Hi, Valerie Lamro, Assistant Director with Leavenworth Public Library, and I'm part of the Next Search Catalog Consortium.
And then next to Valerie, I see Karen. Oh, and Karen is typing in the chat box. She says, Karen Fellows from Citrus County Library System in Beverly Hills, Florida. She is the Library Services Support Tech. And next to Karen, I see Bob.
Hi, sorry. Hi, Bob Denhoff from Aspen Cat, Colorado.
Hi. Down here, I see Jennifer Marlatt. And she's typing in the chat box too, Jennifer Marlatt from Corona Public Library. Hi, Jennifer. And Heather typed, Heather Hernandez, Technical Services Librarian at San Francisco Maritime Research Center, supported by Bywater, on a slow connection today. And then finally, the last person I see here is Brittany Henry. And I guess Brittany might not have a microphone, but she's welcome to everybody that's here. Anybody's welcome to attend. And we're all happy to see you here. So there is an agenda, and I lost my window. Jason will probably be trying to throw that into the chat box. There you go. There's a link to the agenda. Oh, from Lizette in the chat box. If anybody wants to see the agenda, it's over there. And the first thing on it is announcements. So anybody got anything to announce?
Well, my talk on Got $100, Get an ILS was accepted at the Mid-Atlantic chapter of the Medical Library Association in October. So I really need to get started on it.
Brittany Henry in the chat said that she's from Roseville Public Library. No mic.
Okay. We're
Welcome.
happy to have you here, Brittany.
All my announcements are already on the agenda in different places. So.
I did go to Kansas Linux Fest Friday, Saturday, and part of Sunday this weekend here, down in Wichita, and I did a presentation about Koha that was, it was a sparsely attended conference. There were about 60 people there. It was about like one of our conferences in person, but the rooms they were in were huge. It was at Wichita State, and so there's like these rooms in the medical building. There's like 300 seats. And so I did an introduction to Koha for non-librarians in a room that sat 300. I did it to 4 people. That was how many people were interested in Koha. So so I would not call it. Well, I would not say that it was a poor presentation. It was just not well attended. Actually, one of the people told me it was the best presentation that he saw the whole weekend. So I felt pretty good about that. I felt pretty. It was a very intimate group of people. It was not a bad way to do it.
Yeah, I've given talks like that, but no one ever told me it was the best one they'd heard.
I think. Well, I can talk about my feelings about that conference later when I'm not being recorded. Any other announcements? Anybody have anything they want to share with everybody else? So. All right, so we'll move on to conference updates, which will be, was that?
Yep. So we've got more than 45 people registered now for our conference in September. Very exciting. They're continuing to roll in. The conference committee is meeting weekly now until the conference. And so we met last week after the board meeting. We're meeting again right after this meeting, ironing everything out. George, have we heard more from Joe Ransom?
I haven't talked to Joe in a while, but as far as I know, she's prepared to do the keynote on Wednesday. It was right after lunch, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's at like 1 p.m.
We've got it scheduled for like 1 p.m. our time, which is like 7 a.m. her time. That's why he's not going to do it at 8 o'clock in the morning, because that's like 1 o'clock in the morning her time.
Yeah, so it's coming together. We're getting in lanyards and putting the program physical stuff together now, so very exciting. You should, if you're registered, you should be hearing soon from the committee about if you'll be attending the question about the box lunch and the Thursday night activity that we're planning, so we can get a head count for those.
Any questions about the conference from anybody?
What's the Thursday night activity?
Oh, it's at a local saloon. Like out on the patio, they're going to be prepping for their the chili festivals that weekend. So they're going to be like roasting peppers for the chili festival and doing like a private event. And yeah, it's very exciting. And we'll get a little more information from Jill about like what kind of food, because I think she said there was going to be a like special kind of buffet or something, or
cool.
Special menu. So we'll check in with her at the meeting after this.
Okay. Any other questions about the conference? All right. Well, the next thing on the agenda is development update and discussion.
Yes, so we voted earlier this year to fund a development for fixing a problem in the display of item level holds when the item level hold was not the next hold in the queue. We had got a quote from it and voted on that. We did get more information from Bywater when we went back to them, and it sounds like if we did move forward with that, it would become a real performance killer for Koha, because every time you loaded any page that had holds, it would have to check the entire holds queue to see if an item level hold was the next hold. And so the development committee is going to talk about reopening or re-voting on the discussion, or either re-voting on the ones that we already did, or more likely reopening for another round of proposals for development. And we found out like right after the last meeting, so the last development meeting, so we haven't met yet to be sure about that. But the discussion we've had so far, it sounds like we're probably going to open it back up, and if people want to resubmit, but most of the ones were already in the works somewhere, and so, or were like really no one was interested in. So, but people are always would be welcome to resubmit the ones that we already voted on if we do it that way.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember we talked about, of the developments, this one got the most votes, but the second most votes was do nothing.
Yeah. So it was this one and then do nothing, and then it was like a lot for both of those and very few for any of the other options. So the development committee's meeting at the latest next week. I did email them this morning to see if they wanted to meet sometime this week. But our meeting's scheduled for next week, next Friday, like a week from this Friday. So you should hear more by after that meeting, if not sooner.
Is it going to be a performance killer because of Zebra? Or does a Zebra and Elasticsearch not factor into that? Is it going to be something else, another?
I think it was something else. It had to do with like running through the whole holds queue every time a page was loaded that had holds.
Okay.
Right now it says when somebody has an item level hold, it says, and it doesn't matter how far the person is down on the holds queue, it says item level hold 4 and then barcode number, which kind of gives staff often the impression that that item level hold is the next hold. And so the original proposal for this development was to have that only appear when the item level hold was in fact the next hold. But that's the issue, is getting it to only display when the item level hold is the next hold. The logic of doing that is the performance killer.
And George, you wrote some jQuery that just hides that item level hold field, right? Is that up on the wiki?
I don't remember if I put that on the wiki yet or not, but I can I can put it there if it isn't. But it just, what I've got is just something that changes the text from item level hold for patron barcode number. It just changes it to this item has an item level hold on it. It doesn't give you any more data than that. Something like that. It's really short. Text only, doesn't link to a patron. It just replaces that that line with some other generic piece of text. Which, it could be made as simple as it doesn't say anything at all. If you don't want it to say anything at all, it'd be easy to make it do that too. So any questions about development? All right. The next thing we've got on the agenda is a regional state group directory. So I can kind of explain that a little bit. There's here in Kansas, we have three of the regional systems and a few other people that are using Koha, and we get together twice a year and just sit down somewhere and talk about Koha issues. And we know that there are some other regional groups like that. Like there's a group in Texas, apparently, that's trying to get started. And in Idaho, the Cooperative Information Network and ValNet get together fairly regularly. There are a couple of other libraries in Idaho that use Koha, and they don't necessarily meet, but there are all these regional groups that are meeting. And so we thought maybe we could put a regional directory somewhere on the website. And so one of the things we need to know is, does anybody out there know of any regional groups other than the the two that we've kind of just mentioned.
You know, we've got a New Hampshire group, I think, NAYS, and I think there's one in Vermont too. Lucas, either one of those trigger something in your mind? And we've got MassCat. I mean, there's a few groups. I don't know how they get together, but they seem to be, you know, they're a consortium, they're organized with one another, and it's groups of libraries. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Well, this seems like a reasonable thing to do though, doesn't it? And it's not a crazy idea. So if you know of any regional groups, that's like kind of the next step, is to put a page on the website and start, you know, kind of getting a list of groups. So if you know regional groups, let us know. Let us know at info@koha-US.org.
I would say in Colorado, we're starting a very informal one, just because we have Aspen Cat, Pueblo, and now Colorado College is on. So we've just kind of had some real preliminary discussions.
Okay. I'll make a note here, email Bob if I need more information. Okay. Was there anything else that we were going to talk about with that issue, Lizette? Did you remember from our meeting? Was that kind of it? You're shaking your head, so.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
So that takes us on to committee reports, and we've already kind of talked about the conference committee. We're meeting after this meeting. Yeah, we've already kind of talked about development committee, that they haven't met again yet. So next step would be education.
Yep, and we're continuing to update the website with lots of good new resources. I'll link that in the chat. Or they're not all new resources. A lot of it's linking just out to what's already there in a way that's helpful. You know, we put in some information about the setting up receipt printers, because we've seen some discussion about that on like the Bywaters chat and some other places. And so I put that in there. And then we've got just continuing to flesh out, you know, there's a lot of resources out there in a lot of different places. And so the education committee's been working on just bringing those all together in one place and linking to places that already exist out there, so that people are still aware of like the community wiki and stuff, but just linking directly to like the reports on the wiki from our little reports page.
Okay, any questions there? Anybody have any questions about the education committee? All right, well, next up then would be Todd, the fundraising committee.
The fundraising committee met last month, at the end of the month, and we've decided that we want to not go big initially. We'd like to go small. We'd like to see if there's some wins that we can attain. We're still working really with the Knight Foundation, at least in our minds. We would like something together. They don't really have a time frame. We can submit at any time, and then based on their approval and like of what we're proposing, they'll go ahead and just ask us for a request at that time. So we like the flexibility that offers. And in their initial proposal, they want to have a purpose and activity. They limit it to characters. You have 250 characters you can put in your purpose and 750 characters you can put in your activity. So each of us is working on something that we like. There's 5 of us, and we're each going to come up with an idea that we can propose. Currently, I've got a couple of them listed. One in particular for the thing that I like is that koha on a stick. So I'd like to see if that's something that we can, if we can get going, and people can have access to a downloadable koha, start to generate some interest. And I also put a call into bar charts called Quick Study. They're down in Boca Raton, Florida, and left some messages and sent emails. I haven't been able to talk to the person directly. I don't know why. I just am only able to leave voicemails. I'm just trying to see if they have some interest and talk to them about koha and see if we can get some bar charts created, maybe try to get some costs, see what we can do to work that out in regards to them creating it and then having it for resale. So that's it. We'll be meeting again the end of this month, the last Wednesday of the month, and that's it for the report.
Okay. Any questions from anybody about fundraising committee? All right. And John is not here yet. He did the finance committee report, which is linked in the agenda there. I looked at it last week and everything looked good in there, but if John shows up, we can have him go over that. Part of this is a quarterly report since it's the end of the quarter, at the end of whenever the quarter ends, I don't remember. I guess that would be the end of June, wouldn't it, was when the quarter ended, so this includes that. And so those documents are in there if anybody wants to take a look at them. We have money. That's the most important part, I suppose. And everything looks like it's on track for the conference. We have more members than we expected to have at this point in time in the year, so things seem to be going well. And that's why John is so much better at this than I
am. One other thing about conferences or committees is that if you're interested in joining a committee, please email us at info@koha-US.org. Or if you want to come to any of the meetings and just see if it's something you'd be interested in being involved with, those are all listed on our website as well.
Yeah, the calendar is at the bottom of every page on the agenda is on there for all of the committees. Any page on the website at koha-us.org. So if nobody has any questions that I can't answer about the finance committee, we can hop on to open discussion, bugs, issues, etc. So what's going on? What does anybody want to talk about that we haven't talked about already?
So I saw in the chat this morning, apparently the micro upgrades broke item specific holds. We don't use those here, but Ed, yeah, Megan's nodding. Ed had reported that, and apparently it's being worked on. So when you go to place an item specific hold, it just rolls back to the pick a patron thing and doesn't actually place a hold right now.
Yeah, which made it really difficult for like working on missing pieces or like claim returned or anything. So that was a bit of a pain.
When was that micro update? Because I don't think I had that issue here.
I don't know.
Apparently we had one this morning. I don't know because our system was broken this morning because it wasn't finished type of thing. So it's probably fairly recently for everyone if you're on Bywater.
Yeah, it was fairly recently, but because we didn't notice it until yesterday, so it was probably like the night before.
I placed an item-specific hold for somebody just a little while ago. At least I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. I'm going to have to look into that to see if I did or not.
We were having some trouble yesterday, but I was just able to do it today, so maybe that means they've been able to start fixing it. I didn't, yeah.
Or maybe we didn't get that micro update yet.
Maybe. What, do you know what version you're on, Megan? If you go to your About Koha?
It looks like 0.08 is what we're on, and I was able to replicate it this morning.
Okay, we're still on 0.07, so we must not have got it yet. I think we usually get ours Wednesday night.
Yep, I'm on 0.07, so that's probably why I don't know about this problem yet.
And they also might stop rolling out the micro updates until they fix it.
I know I'm going to ask about that as soon as we're done with this.
Yeah, it looks like I'm able to place an item level hold, so I think they fixed it because we needed it. So it looks like it's working.
Okay.
Do you know what bug number that was? Out of curiosity, does anybody know?
Well, she said, or on the chat, they said Ed couldn't find a bug about it yet.
Okay.
But let me see if someone reported one. Nope, not even. There's not anything new reported. So.
Okay. That's the first I've heard of that. So.
Yeah, we're 811.
Okay. So anything else? Any other bugs people want to talk about? I did. I think we talked about this since. I think this was. I don't remember if we talked about this at the last meeting or not, but if you go to koha-us.org/bugs, I've updated the bugs that we're following. So there's an RSS feed there now. So all the bugs that we've talked about in these meetings you're going to be able to find them. If not on this page, you can click on the Bugzilla feed and it'll take you to the list of all the bugs that we've been tracking and that we've discussed. Which right now there's 32 bugs on there, so.
I have some more to add to that.
Okay.
So last year at koha-US or Koha conference, we talked about Ed did his great talk on how he uses the course reserves for on display, but
Right.
we also put in bug 12141 for an on display module, and there's been some discussion, though the last discussion was like at the end of September, and there are quite a few people CC'd on the bugs. But if we could get more talk going about that, a lot of people at KohaCon seemed really interested in that. Basically just duplicating the course reserves module, because a lot of it would be very similar, and then editing it so that people could use both the on-display module and a course reserves module, and not need to mess with like a bunch of jQuery and stuff. And I think that's something that we've talked about here.
Right.
Some and haven't got to it, but so that is one. And then another bug is 18170. I'm putting links to both of these in the chat, which is to show damage status on check-in. Because if something, say, made it from mending back onto the shelf and then we check it in, we would never know, because
Right.
nothing shows up that it's in mending or whatever damage status. And that's something I get asked about all the time. And I put this bug in like a year and a half, 2.5 years ago, and keep forgetting to bring it up here. And there was recently on the discussion about the pop-ups on the check-in screen, there was some discussion where someone else had mentioned maybe adding the damage status in there, but now I can't find which bug that was on.
Yeah, do you know offhand which of these keys is for the media room? Does it have a number? What do you mean the media room?
There we go.
So I'm trying to find that bug, because that might also be good for people to comment on if they're interested in that one.
Okay. Well, I've just added those two that you mentioned to Bugzilla at koha-us.org, so they should be on the feed on that bugs page now.
Thanks, George.
Or they should be on that. Yeah, they're in there somewhere. The one that I had to add a new SMS provider recently, and I think there are only a few users on bug number. I'll put it in the chat. Bug number 20439. If you're using the SMS by email and you add a provider, they don't sort alphabetically. they add in the order that you add them. And I think there's some jQuery that will resort them alphabetically, but it would be nice if they just sorted alphabetically automatically, like any sane system would. So that one is already on our bug list, but I thought I'd bring it up because if we get a bunch more people sign on to it, we can maybe see if somebody will actually do something about it. I don't remember if there were any others that I thought would be good ones to mention today. But anybody else have anything that bothers them? Maybe something that should be a bug that isn't yet?
I have a question.
Sure.
I don't know if it's a bug, but in our circ and fine rules, in 2 places, we have that the item type interlibrary loan should not renew. It can check out, but not renew. And I thought I had fixed it, and I was talking to Ed Bill on the listserv, and he was saying, you know, put it up in the general rules for all libraries, and that forces it to go look at the rule in the library. But I thought that fixed it, but I made a mistake, and it didn't fix it. They're still renewing. So right now we're putting holds on them so people can't renew them because, you know, we don't get the item back, and then the library we are loaning from is mad at us and so on. So why wouldn't this work, or is there a way to move the circ and fine rules higher in the list so that they're looked at first by Koha, or I don't know.
If you have it set at the library level, it should be looking at the library level first before it hits that all libraries default. Like that, the circ fine rules page shows you the trickle down. So if your rule is library patron category and then your ILL patron type, it'll hit that first. But we do a lot of like all rules. So like pull up the library for all patrons all, and do all patrons with the ILL type and put the renew to 0, it should bar that. Now, if you have a rule that says like library, all patrons, ILL, and then you have another rule that says like library, adult patrons, ILL, it's going to follow that adult patron rule first. So if that's set different than your all rule, that could be causing conflicts. I don't know. Circ-fine rules are a bear to troubleshoot. You'd have to like list it out.
So
it can also, the other thing that I would look at, how many libraries are you running with one Koha?
3.
3? I would look at, I don't remember what the name of the system preference is, but it determines whether Koha looks at the rules for the library, the patron's home library, the library you're checking things out at, or the library that owns the item, for which circ rules are followed when you're placing, well, that's when you're placing requests. But that might be part of the issue too, is if you have, which library does the rules follow, do the circ rules follow? Because we have everything set up here so that the circ rules follow the library that owns the item.
That's
or
what we had it set up for as well. It doesn't follow that either. You know, you go to check out an item that is only a 2-week checkout in another branch. It's from that branch. You check it out here, and it checks out for 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks, which is weird.
Yeah, and I'm getting it wrong. We have it set so that the checkouts follow the rules at the library where you're checking the item out at.
Okay.
And it gets really confusing though when the rules follow the library that owns the item. That can be where conflicts come up too, is what I've found. Particularly, we have it set so that whether or not you can place a hold on an item follows the rules of the library that owns the item, but whether or not you can check it out, all the circulation rules follow the library where the item is being checked out at. So that can be confusing too. So it can be really tough to figure out where where the problem is without looking at those system preferences and the CERC rules at the same time. So that might be where you have to look too, is in your a combination. It could be a combination of the CERC rules and the system preferences are what's causing this hole that these renewals are falling into.
The system preference that you're specifically talking about is CERC control.
CERC control, yeah.
Yeah. And ours is set to the library you're logged in at. So wherever the patron is standing, that's the rule it follows.
Right, for CERC.
For CERC.
Let me
Which would be renewals.
Yeah.
The library the item is from. The weird thing is these interlibrary loans are from our library. I mean, the item originally isn't, but we create them and put them in our catalog, and our patrons are checking them out, and that's what's weird.
What's your CERC control set to?
It's set to the library the item is from.
Okay.
We've always been doing that.
Right.
It seems like ILLs didn't renew, and then after, and I can't say when, after an update or something, they started renewing. And I wish I was more observant. I wish I could be more specific, but I just don't understand. Is there any way, does anybody know any way to move CERC rules up in the list? Because I'm told it looks in a top to bottom.
Yeah, and there isn't a way to prioritize them. They're prioritized by the way it describes it on that page, which is the more specific the rule, the higher up the list it goes, essentially.
But there is another system preference I just saw called items denied renewal. So you could try and block it there too. If you set up an item type ILL in that system preference, you may get around the issue at least.
You should also check the home or holding branch system preference, because it seems like this has multiple system preferences that define where it checks for.
Home or holding branch?
Yeah, I put it in the chat.
Okay.
And Jason put the items denied renewal in the chat as well.
Yeah, those two system preferences are exactly the same, almost.
It seems like they do the same thing. It seems like that could be easily where a conflict comes up with if they're not both set the same way.
Yeah. And I found bug 23039 is the one that there's also been some discussion on maybe adding the damage status in as part of Owen. He's making some changes to those pop-up messages. And someone suggested adding damage status in there.
Okay.
So.
Thanks, guys.
Sure, I hope that helps.
Yeah.
I hope we didn't just make everything worse. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we did. So I'm also noticing that John's here. Hey, John.
John is here, yes.
We kind of jumped over the fundraising committee because you weren't here, and there's no way that my explanation of the not fundraising, the finance committee stuff. There's no reason that you can't talk about it now, because what I talked about was pretty terrible.
This was a big month, as it were, because the second quarterly report was issued. The standard finance committee report really has nothing exciting to show. We're seeing an increase in income, as you would expect, because we've conference registration is now open. So a lot of the money that you see in the reflected PayPal balance is not due to memberships any longer. It's due to the fact that conference registration opened in early July. There's a little bit of membership money in there because we've had a number of people register for the conference that were currently not members that indicated they did want to join. So that's a little bit of it, but the majority of it is directly related to conference income. The bigger report, of course, is the second quarterly report, or the report for the second quarter of 2019, and we're doing very well. This is the first report that was constructed utilizing the concept of membership year as a separate concept from that of calendar year. Even though, as I've noted, and will continue to note for a few additional quarter reports, that the budgets written say fiscal year, they were actually constructed using the membership year concept. That is to say, money collected for 2019 memberships is going to be reflected within membership year 2019, regardless of when that income happens to be received. Given how we have membership set up, that's only going to ever really be the fourth quarter of the preceding year. And given when we have our conference, and probably I imagine are continuing to plan to hold it, there really shouldn't be anything expense-wise or income-wise from the conference that would go outside of the calendar year, but you'll see those as new possibilities for reporting periods within the membership year construct and the membership year reports. If we ever have to report anything out to any sort of reporting agency, be it something from the federal government or the state of Kansas, those will utilize fiscal year. Those will utilize calendar year dates. So those will be straightforward numbers. And you'll note that the membership year discussion includes the budget goals, whereas the fiscal year numbers do not. Again, that's because of how everything will be straight calendar, should it ever come to a point where we need to report those amounts or any amounts out to any requesting agency. So we're actually doing very well. We're over the membership goal for the year, and those were all full year memberships. So those that are joining now, while we did expect an increase in membership related to the conference, even though it's not quite as much as we had expected, at least not in terms of the conference registrations submitted to date, we are seeing a little bit of an uptick there, and we're doing very well. You'll also have noticed, if you've taken a look at that quarterly report, that the discretionary funds are listed as a separate line item. We've identified about $1,900 that can be used for discretionary purposes of the organization. And by discretionary here, I mean things related to educational endeavors or the results of the voting for development processing. And because that's not part of the current fiscal year budget, that was given its own line item, with the note that this year we haven't spent anything on that yet. So that $1,900 and change is remaining there, and anything unspent will just continue to carry over in that discretionary fund balance. So that's really it for the Finance Committee. We are working on putting together a statement, a committee statement that can be included with the other committee statements. And Candace and Eli have provided me their feedback with regard to portions of the bylaws that would need to be changed to accommodate the creation of the financial manager position. We'll be looking at that shortly and putting together a draft of a series of revisions to be proposed and run by the membership to effectively create that financial manager position. That should probably be coming your way in a month or so. So stay on the lookout for that. There we go from the Finance Committee.
Thanks, John. That was so much better than what I said, which was just, we have money, things are going well.
John does this for a living.
Yeah.
For an
George is
executive
better at it.
summary, George, it was perfect.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions about the finances of the organization for John, since he's here now? Right on. So we were talking about bugs, or anything else that anybody wanted to talk about. So does anybody have any problems or issues that they'd like some advice on or help with? Anything we can do?
Well, excuse me. We're considering moving our Koha installation from a server in-house right over there to a cloud server. So when we get the branding issues solved and all that, maybe coming to you for help. As far as I can tell, the main problem is we need better passwords.
I also noticed Jill was here now. Somebody had a question, I guess it was Jason had a question about was it the Thursday night activity of the conference? Maybe since Jill's here, we can ask that again. It was about just what is the Thursday night activity, right?
It looks like she's dialed in and the phone is muted. I don't think she can unmute that.
I just unmuted it. Can you talk now, Jill?
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Sorry
Okay,
about that.
good. That's fine. Yeah, so someone had a question about the Thursday night activity.
Was it Thursday? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
wondering what it was.
So that's kind of the big kickoff to the Chili Festival that's going to be happening downtown. So about, I would say, a 5 to 10 minute walk from the library. We're going to meet at the Gold Dust, which is just kind of like a local restaurant bar. And we're going to be out on the back patio. And it'll be a cost to each, person attending, like $10 or something for their meal. But they're going to actually be out there kind of like roasting chilies and, just kind of a chance for everybody to like meet up and relax and have a few drinks if they'd like. So I just will need kind of a number the week beforehand on anyone who wants to attend that.
I started working on a survey about the box lunch that was going to include information about anybody who was going to be there too. Or we're gonna find a way to send out a poll to everybody so we could get a good solid number.
Okay, and we can order from the menu, their full menu, or we could have something like a taco bar set up. So I don't really have a preference either way. So if I could get any feedback ahead of time on that, and then we could just, put that on the survey too. So.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Jason?
Totally.
Okay, cool. Since she's here, does anybody else have any questions about the conference that about Pueblo or in general, maybe for Jill?
Yeah, and I was wondering if everybody has found either, like an Airbnb or rooms. I had talked to the lady at Spring Hill Suites, and she said that only 6 rooms had been booked through them. So I kind of got the sense that people were maybe going more the Airbnb route.
Well, at least some of us haven't booked yet.
Okay.
Well, and the room blocks those prices are only reserved for a few more days. One
right,
of them
and that's why she sent that email, because I forget what the deadline was, but they're coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm checking now on the website. So one of them is Saturday, is the last date of the book at the Courtyard, and then and then Tuesday in like almost 2 weeks for the Spring Hill Suites.
See, I wonder if she's just noting reservations made directly with her, because I booked through the Marriott website using the link that she provided. So I wonder if they're not necessarily seeing those types of reservations because you didn't actually call and speak directly to somebody at the hotel to get the rate.
I don't know. I have a feeling that it's the ones that are being booked through the link that she's actually seeing, because I think she could probably track those more easily. But I can follow up with her just to make sure that she's pulling in from both ways.
Well, we can also send out a reminder to the mailing list to say if you're going to stay at one of these hotels, the deadline for the Courtyard is this Saturday, and the deadline for the Spring Hill is about 12 days away, 13 days away or so. It's a week from next Tuesday. So we can send out an email saying, reminding everybody that that's the discounted rate ends if you don't book by those dates. So. It could also be that that people are staying in Airbnbs or things like that, because we've got like 5 or 6 people staying at the house we rented. So
Right.
I know I'm staying in an Airbnb, and so is the person from Lewiston who's coming. She's also staying in an Airbnb. So
yeah, this is one of those other things that millennials are killing, right? That when you read those
hotels.
articles about millennials killing everything, hotels is next on the list. First it was Applebee's, and it's Chili's. Next, hotels.
Keep your damn kids out of my concierge lounge.
Yeah, some of us geezers still want to stick to hotels. One of my friends was rather put off by having to sign the bed bug waiver.
Oh.
I like to say when I travel, I'm adventurous with my dining, but I'm not adventurous with my lodging. And that's one of the few chains that actually you're going to step into one of 3 kinds of rooms whenever you step into any level of Marriott property. And I like that. I like that assurance.
Oh, I have another question, I guess. It's random. Pueblo's like same latitude as me, so I assume the answer is hot, but what's the weather going to be like?
Well, this week it's in the upper 90s. So by then I would say probably 80s would be my guess. Dry, very dry.
Okay.
What's the elevation of Pueblo?
It's about 4,600 feet.
So it's not going to be as hot as Iola, Jason.
Good.
Are there any forest fires nearby?
Not right now. We've been pretty lucky this summer.
Good.
We've not had any major ones at all.
Well, I think so far the only koha-US conference we've had that wasn't affected at least a little bit by forest fires was the one I didn't go to in Erie, Pennsylvania. But every other one, that first one in Wenatchee was like having a conference in a big giant hookah lounge.
Jill, this is not an invitation to start a forest fire.
Okay. Yep, let's just hope we're good for the next 5 weeks.
Okay. So anything else anybody wants to talk about or ask about, or
We should probably talk about the next general meeting a little
that's
bit.
probably a good idea. The next general meeting, we're in August, so the next general meeting, do we have one planned for September, or are we just going to meet at the,
I think
I've already forgotten.
Usually we just meet at the conference, and we do have a slot for that on the agenda, which of course is like the one Google sheet I don't have open.
There we go.
So we have that for Thursday. No, where'd that go? Yeah, Thursday at 3:15 Colorado time, which is, you're in Mountain Time, right, Jill?
Yep.
Yep, that's what I thought. So 3:15 Mountain Time, which I guess is a little late for the East Coast. We didn't really think about that when we were putting the schedule together. Maybe we should talk about that at our meeting.
Well, that is kind of close to my bedtime.
But you'll be there, Fred.
Yeah, you'll be there.
I may be asleep, but
do you mean
Then
3:15?
we have the gathering right after that. So
yeah.
Well, okay.
So the main takeaway is we're not having our online meeting next month.
Yeah, we won't have a meeting on September 11th. That's what I've got on my calendar, actually, now that I look at it up here on the wall, is where we canceled the online meeting on September 11th. So our next meeting will be at the conference, but we will also broadcast it on Zoom. I will, that's one thing I didn't check on, is to make sure that we ought to be able to do it at this link, but I'll double check that to make sure nobody's booked.
Ours is also totally available.
Okay.
So that can be the other. Yeah, we can talk about that more at the conference committee.
Once that's been confirmed, there should be a separate link in the calendar just for the meeting. which is what we had last year. Because right now we've just got the conference on there as a multi-day event, and nothing specific about the separate rescheduled general.
Yeah, I'll take care of that, and I don't think I can. I've got the window open for Zoom right now, but I should be able to check and make sure that we have. I'm 90% sure we'll have the ability to use the same link that we always use for the meeting. Because even though this is one of the Nichols Zoom meeting rooms, 90% of what happens in this meeting room is koha-US stuff. So. That's kind of pushing us up to, it's 11:28 on my clock, so anybody have anything else they want to discuss or bring up before we close for the day? A good meeting, everybody. We'll see you in Pueblo or online.
See you in Pueblo.
And I'm going to leave this meeting up. I'll leave this room running for the people that are
on the conference
committee. And